Today we're going to be looking at more Lorwyn Eclipsed cards, and I've chosen the ones that I think are looking like early draft all-stars or cards you really want at your pre-release. First up is Curious Colossus. It's 5 white for a 7/7 giant warrior. When this creature enters, each creature target opponent controls loses all abilities, becomes a coward in addition to its other types, and, critically, has base power and toughness 1/1. So very, very strong card. It just negates your opponent's entire board state. There's a lot of scenarios where this will just be a card your opponent can never recover from, and you just win the card single-handedly based on this one. It does end up in a color that is sometimes leaning more aggressive, where white decks can't always include a 7-drop or don't always want to, but this card's so powerful that if you're playing sealed, you should basically always just try to play white to get this card into your deck because it's so game-breakingly powerful on so many different board states. Sure, there'll be scenarios where your opponent has few creatures, they're relying on card draw and like 1 or 2 creatures chipping away, but overall, the fact that it gets rid of abilities, turns them all into 1/1s, and there's even a -1/-1 counter theme in this format, so any creature that has a -1 counter on it is just going to die instantly if it becomes a 1/1 base stat. So that's another upside as well. This card's super strong and is going to win a lot of games out of nowhere where it feels like you can't lose and all of a sudden you can't win, and Curious Colossus is the reason why. Next up is Sunderflock. For 7 blue, it's a 5/5 elemental. It does cost X less to cast, where X is the greatest mana value among elementals you control. It's a flyer, and when this creature enters, if you cast it, return all non-elemental creatures to their owner's hands. So importantly in this set, there are changelings, which count as every creature type, which is a double-edged sword because it does make it easier to cast this in a deck that isn't dedicated to elementals. So that's a nice upside to have, but it does mean your opponent might have a couple of elementals in play because they might have some changelings in play. So this isn't just going to be a one-sided bounce for all of your opponent's creature, you keep all of yours, though there are going to be scenarios where that is the case, where you are playing an elementals deck, you have 4 elementals in play, your opponent has no changelings, they aren't playing an elementals deck, and you just one-sided bounce all their stuff for 6 mana, and you get to have a giant flyer as well. So this card is going to be really hard to beat in a lot of scenarios, and it's not going to be, I think, too hard to get a 3 or 4 mana elemental or even a 2 mana elemental into play to cast this for much less than the 9 mana that it would cost. So if you're casting this for 6 or 7 even, maybe even casting it for 5 in some scenarios, you're going to be able to just absolutely decimate your opponent, especially because it's a 5/5 flyer, and a lot of decks aren't going to have a lot of elementals, and even if they have a couple changelings, bouncing 3 of their creatures or 2 of their creatures is still going to be formidable, especially because it comes with such a stats boost. You're going to bounce some of your own creatures as well sometimes, but you're getting the big stats boost, so you're still going to end up ahead, and you're going to be really happy playing this card. Next is Bitterbloom Bearer. So not quite as flashy as the last couple cards we looked at, but still quite formidable. It's black for a 1/1 fairy rogue. It's got flash, it's got flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 blue and black fairy creature token with flying. This card is one of those ones that comes down early, and if your opponent doesn't have an answer for it, it's just going to take over the game single-handedly. Even if they do have an answer for it, they're going to generally be trading even on mana with this, spending 2 mana to deal with this. And since you're usually going to flash this in on their end step, they'll spend, you spend 2 mana, you get your extra 1/1 on your upkeep, your opponent untaps, kills this card. You still end up with that extra 1/1 that you can do stuff with, which is pretty nice. Even if your opponent does have some 1 mana removal spell that can deal with this, you still got that extra 1/1. So generally, you're going to come out ahead in any exchange involving Bitterbloom Bearer. And if your opponent can't kill it, you just win the game with this card. So it's a really formidable card to have access to, building an army all by itself, and it only costs 2 mana. Though black does make it a little harder to cast in some scenarios, it's really good and a card that I foresee doing a lot of damage in limited games. Next up is Goliath Daydreamer. It's 2 red for a 4/4 giant wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, exile that card with a dream counter on it instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. Whenever this creature attacks, you may cast a spell from among cards you own in exile with dream counters on them without paying its mana cost. So you spend turn 4 casting this card, next turn you cast an instant or sorcery, it gets exiled with a dream counter, you immediately attack, you can cast that card you just exiled with the dream counter on it for free, which is going to be really nice, and then you just get 2 instants for the just price of 1 basically, which is really, really strong. So as long as your deck has enough instants and sorceries to consistently be able to cast one the turn after you play Goliath Daydreamer, you're going to be in great shape and probably going to win almost all of the time when the Goliath Daydreamer doesn't die, which is really strong, because even if your opponent does kill this, there are going to be some percentage of the games where your opponent doesn't kill this on turn 4 and you just get to like take over the game. And if you get even one attack in with this to double your spells, you've already done quite good. And if you can just consistently trigger this every single turn, the game's going to end very, very quickly. Goliath Daydreamer is really nice, and also kind of a nice design as well, because it is kind of cool that your opponent does have some window to respond. Like some of the cards we've looked at previously, there's not much your opponent can do about you turning all of their creatures into 1/1s or you bouncing all of their non-elementals. But if they like know you have Goliath Daydreamer in your deck, they can potentially like play around it for games 2 and 3 by like holding that removal spell that they have that can deal with it, so that you can't just win the game with your Daydreamer, which I always like when rares have a little bit of counterplay, because it's not always that fun to have the gameplay experience of, oh, my opponent beat me with a rare and there was nothing I could do. But Goliath Daydreamer, very strong, but there is some counterplay, and it does need a little bit of synergy to go with it, because you need to have instants and sorceries, though I imagine you'll be able to get that done, and the Daydreamer will be doing quite good. Next, or quite well. Next up is Champions of the Perfect. So for 3 and a green, you get a 6/6 elf warrior, so great stats. What's the downside? Well, the downside is, as an additional cost to cast this spell, behold an elf and exile it. So either an elf you control or an elf card from your hand. Remember once again that there are changelings in this set, so that does increase the number of elves you'll have access to, though that does make this card a little bit harder to use in some decks than others. I imagine if you get this card early, you'll prioritize those elves so you can put it in your deck, because it also says whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. When this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to its owner's hand. So even if your opponent does kill the Champions of the Perfect before you get to draw a card by casting a creature spell, you are going to get back the elf that you like beholded to like get Champions of the Perfect into play, which could be beneficial, because maybe you have like an elf that has an enters the battlefield effect and you had that in play, and then you use the behold ability on it, get it exiled, it comes back to your hand, you can recast it, get that ability again. So it's not even all downside on that behold part of the card. And there are going to be a lot of scenarios where this doesn't die, because it is kind of hard to kill a 6/6. A lot of decks just can't really do that on command. Or if they like enchant it so it like can't attack or block, but it stays in play, you can cast your creatures, draw cards, and that's going to also win you the game. So Champions of the Perfect, really, really formidable card for your green decks. Just make sure you get some elves. Next up, we have Bray of Clan Stoutarm. So we've covered one of the cards for each color, and now we're covering a multicolored card. It's 2 red, white for a 4/4 legendary creature giant warrior. It has 1 and a white tap. Another target creature you control gains flying and lifelink until end of turn, so it's a really good card in any racing situation, because flying and lifelink is just what you want in a racing situation. Or a 4/4 can also just be really good in a racing situation. And at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost if the spell's mana value is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained this turn, otherwise put it into your hand. So pushes damage, gains you life, gets you card advantage, pretty much everything you want in a card in limited. There are also going to be potential situations you can set up where you gain life from something other than giving something lifelink with Bray's ability. So you can use that to get some card advantage without actually having to activate Bray. So maybe you play Bray on a turn you already have gained some life, and so you can get a card back to your hand right away, or maybe even cast it for free depending on how much life you gain. But basically, there are going to be situations where you can like potentially get a card back out of this before your opponent even has necessarily the chance to kill it with any sorcery speed removal they might have. So Bray of Clan Stoutarm, really, really strong, excellent addition to your red-white decks. And there are going to be situations where you play this, then like on turn 5, you like activate it, attack with your 3-drop or whatever you had, gain some life, play you another 3-drop with your, like you have 5 mana, so you like play a 3-drop, activate Bray, next turn you like play a 4-drop, activate Bray. Like activating Bray is very, very strong. You do have to be a little bit wary. Generally, your opponent would kill the Bray if they had removal, so oftentimes they won't be able to kill whatever creature you're buffing, but you still have to be careful of that scenario. Just a great card though overall, even though you kind of often will have to untap with it to be able to get the max value. You'll have to have another creature in play, but still a great card. Finally, we're looking at Sonar, Innovative First Year. It's a hybrid card, so it's 2 red, blue, which means you can either cast it for 2 blue, 2 red, or 2 blue-red. So a lot of flexibility with this card. It fits into tons of different decks. It's a 2/4 legendary creature goblin sorcery, and it has Vivid. At the beginning of your first main phase, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X non-land cards, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. And remember, Sonar contributes 2 to this all by himself. For each of those colors, you may exile a card of that color from among the revealed cards, then shuffle. You may cast the exiled cards this turn. So if you have Sonar in play, you can use this and then like flip maybe like a blue card and a red card, and then you get access to 2 extra spells that turn because you can exile one of the blue cards, one of the red cards. If you do hit 2 blue cards, you can only exile one of them, but it's still card advantage if it sticks around. You do have to wait till your next main phase. Your opponent is going to be able to interact with it if they have a kill spell, but you're going to be getting a lot of card advantage with this card, potentially getting up to 2 spells a turn. It's really, really strong. Or if you're playing like a 3-color deck or something like that, you can maybe even get up to 3, like X equals 3 or something like that, and give even more selection. Because one of the yeah, you can get a lot of value from this by being a hybrid card, gives you a lot of extra flexibility, though it will keep in mind like you have to exile a card of that color for the X. So if you have like a blue, like if you have like this in a blue black deck, for example, and you don't have any red spells, then you won't necessarily be able to cast like 3 spells from this, but you'll be able to cast maybe a blue spell and a black spell or something like that. Really, really tons of card advantage for your 4-mana play. Really strong rare, though your opponent does have a window to respond to it, which I actually like because it means that there is some counterplay. Your opponent just has a kill spell, the game continues as normal, but if this guy sticks around, you're going to be doing absolutely devastating work. That's going to do it for this one, though. I hope you open these cards in your pre-releases or in your drafts, and we'll be looking at more cards in the future, of course. That's going to do it for this one, though. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time.